The two pink lines on the pregnancy test felt like a death sentence. My name is Maya, and I was 17, a straight A student with aspirations of college, and a future that suddenly felt out of reach. My boyfriend, Jake, had initially assured me that he loved me, but when I first told him, he froze. "We can manage it," he said, but he sounded far away, and his eyes were averted. At that moment, I realized I was alone in this. My parents would never get it. They were strict, traditional, and proud of their eldest child's academic success. If they discovered it, they'd disown me. Or worse. And school? I'd be expelled for sure. The shame would follow me for the rest of my life. I couldn't let that happen. This baby can't ruin everything. I had discovered the clinic online, a small, discreet establishment on the outskirts of our small town. It advertised confidentiality and compassion. When I entered, I could feel my heart pounding so loudly that I thought everyone could hear it. The receptionist gave me a warm look and waved me down to a room where I sat with my bag in my lap like it was a comforting partner. And then Dr. Ethan came in, and I noticed how young he seemed, early 30s perhaps, with easy, kind eyes and a gentle presence. He introduced himself and invited me to sit. His voice was gentle and soothing, and I felt for the first time in weeks a glimmer of hope. Dr. Ethan walked me through the procedure, then handed me the abortion pills and told me how to take them. "You're going to want to put them inside you, vaginally," he said, his tone clinical but gentle. "It's very important to follow the instructions in order for it to work. Call me immediately if you have any complications." My face was burning with embarrassment, and I nodded. My choice, the pills, heavy in my hand, felt weighty at the moment. He smiled reassuringly at me, but there was something in his eyes, something that twisted my stomach up in a way I really couldn't explain. I brought the pills home, but couldn't bring myself to take them. Every time I made the effort, my hands trembled too badly, and I felt like I was about to vomit. A week went by, and the fear just got worse. Every night I cried myself to sleep, the burden of my secret killing me slowly. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. My parents were out of town for the weekend, and I called Dr. Ethan, my voice shaking. "I can't do it," I whispered. "I need your help." Dr. Ethan pulled into my driveway, his eyes a combination of concern and something less easy to identify. He led me to my bedroom, his touch firm yet tender. "It's going to be okay," he said calmly. "I'll handle it all." My heart pounded as he prepared the pills, and I lay back on the bed. His hands were steady, his movements spoke precision, but there was something about the way his fingers grazed my skin that made my spine tingle. I figured it was nerves, but his eyes held mine a beat too long when I looked up. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, though I was unable to say anything because my throat felt too tight. He put a hand on my thigh, and his warm touch made me feel something I hadn't felt in weeks. Safe. But it was more than that. There was a spark, a chemistry I couldn't quite explain. I turned away, a flush rising in my face, embarrassed. He was slow, almost gentle, as he started to insert the pills. But then his fingers hung, and a heat ran through me that was not fear or shame. My breath broke, and there were the signs of him. The way his eyes changed, darkened, the way his jaw stiffened. He broke the space between us, breath warm on my skin, but I didn't flinch. I don't know who moved first. Perhaps it was me, leaning into him, finding solace in the only person who I felt understood me. Or maybe it was him, cupping my face with his hand and licking away my tears with his thumb. When our lips touched, it was like a dam bursting open. All the fear, the guilt, the loneliness, it all emptied out of me, and I hung on to him like he was my only lifeline. We were in my bed, his body against mine, his fingers both tender and desperate. At that point, I did not think about Jake or my parents, or the baby. All I could feel was skin heat, the weight of a body, and the strange alien clutch of relief and shame washing over me. A few days later, as I waited for a follow-up appointment at the clinic, I found a file hidden in Dr. Ethan's office. It included letters from other young women, all of whom felt pain and betrayal after meeting him. I read it as my hands trembled, knowing I wasn't the first, and probably wouldn't be the last. When I asked him about the letters, he became defensive. The nice, compassionate doctor was gone. In his place, a manipulative and intimidating man. "If you tell anyone," he said in a chilling voice, "I'll make sure your parents and your school know everything. You think they'll take your word over mine?" Lila, my best friend, saw I was acting differently and confronted me. Weighing my words, I reluctantly told her about the pregnancy and Dr. Ethan. Lila, who had her own issues with an abusive home life, became my confidant and collaborator. We formulated together a plan to expose Dr. Ethan, but it put Lila in danger when Dr. Ethan found out about our scheme. Everything came to a head when I went into labor prematurely during a confrontation with Dr. Ethan. Lila rushed me to the hospital, but Dr. Ethan followed us, determined to silence me once and for all. The hospital was a blur of bright lights and frantic voices, the sterile smell of antiseptic burning my nose. I could barely think through the pain, but I knew I had to fight, not just for my life, but for the truth. Dr. Ethan pretended to be my attending physician, and his calm demeanor fooled the staff. My friend Lila, ever resourceful, snuck into the hospital's records room to look for evidence of his misconduct. All the while, I recorded his threats on my phone, my hands trembling as I pressed the button. The tension felt unbearable, each second feeling like an eternity. Dr. Ethan confronted her in the hallway when Lila returned, holding a folder of damning documents. I could hear their voices escalating, his cold and menacing, hers defiant. Gathering the last of my strength, I broadcast the recording over the hospital's PA system. He was the voice echoing through the narratives that revealed the lies and manipulation. The staff stopped in their tracks, horror and disbelief etched on their faces. Dr. Ethan attempted to escape, but security apprehended him. When he was taken away in handcuffs, I crumpled into Lila's arms. I was crying so fast. It was over. He couldn't harm me, or anyone else, again. I lifted my newborn. Her fingers curled around mine. After having come through what felt like a miracle, I was filled with emotions, relief, love, and an intense desire to keep her safe. Lila sat next to me, keeping me grounded. We had done the unthinkable, and while the path ahead wasn't going to be easy, I knew I wasn't alone. I looked at my baby, not with regret, but with hope for what was to come. I had violated boundaries I didn't realize I had, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my power and my life. Lila gripped my hand, her smile a silent pledge that we would get through whatever happened next together. For the first time in months, I felt I could breathe.